Hello and welcome, I'm Steelfur of Steelfur Speaks, and this is my new player hero guide series. This guide series focuses on how accessible and playable heroes are to new players. It doesn't really cover meta decks, but it will cover things like typical play patterns and that kind of thing, and really bring you into grips with whether or not a hero is good for you as a new player to pick up. So if you want a meta deck list, just Google and see what's happening right now. But this is more if you're just coming to the game, you're like, who are all these heroes? What do they play? Well, I have a playlist for you, which is all of these heroes. It's a 10-15 minute video which just breaks down their play patterns, their important cards, and lets you really know what it's going to be like to play them if you start playing them in Flesh and Blood. Florian Rotwood Harbinger. They call me the Harbinger, a blight or a blessing, depending on the season. One who walks among the withered and the fallen to remind our opposed Rosetta of the truth. The Rosetta are the armed forces in Candlehold in Aria, by the way. Those who dwell in the endless summer fear mortality, they fear rot and ruin. But what is fear to those who cling to a false paradise where life stagnates? You, dear creatures, understand that life and death are two sides of the same leaf, each giving way to the other. The decay that some Rosetta dread is not an end, but a return to the earth, rich with the promise of renewal. Let them bask in their illusion of eternal summer. We know the power of the soil beneath us. Fear not the rot, for it is the prelude to rebirth. As long as the leaves fall and the roots drink deep, there will always be a place for those who seek the true face of nature. Welcome to the Rotwood. May your ending nurture another's beginning. So immediately we've got these images of autumn, of decay, of the darker side of nature where things must pass and die and rot. And if that's your vibe, then, well, you've got blue eyes, green eyes, emo kid over here, and I think maybe you'll like what he's shipping. Florian Rotwood Harbinger is an Elemental Runeblade hero, and just as a reminder, Elemental Runeblade, he can play all Elemental cards, he can play all Runeblade cards. He can't play Shadow Runeblade, for example. You have to match both boxes, or one of, you have to match both boxes, or one of the boxes if there's only one on a card. He also has Essence of Earth, which is an elemental thing that means he can include Earth cards in his deck. There's also Lightning and Ice. And if you don't have that text, you can't include those cards. His ability is, if there are 8 or more Earth cards in your banished zone, he gets, if you would create 1 or more Aura tokens, instead create that many +1 of each of those tokens. So immediately you get the idea that he's going to be creating a lot of tokens and using those to get value. We'll get into exactly what Aura tokens are in a second, but first let's just talk about his other key cards. So once per turn action for his weapon, to spend, attack. If you've played or created an aura this turn, this gets +2, so obviously he's going to be creating auras, building power on the board, and storing power from one turn to the next. Felling of the Crown has one of the new keywords in Rosetta for Florian, Decompose. The Decompose part is the first sentence, and then the ability specific to Felling the Crown is the second sentence. So Decompose is, when this attacks, you may banish 2 Earth cards and an action card from your graveyard. If you do, each hero puts a card from their hand on the bottom of their deck. Of course, a lot of the time when you're playing this, you're not going to have a card in your hand, so while it feels like it's fair, it's actually not fair, and most of the effects on the Earth cards are the same. So if they are affecting you and your opponent equally, A, you're doing it wrong, and B, then they are fair, but most of the time they're not affecting you and your opponent equally, so that's fine. It also has the text that if there are 4 or more Earth cards in your banished zone, this gets +4. So you immediately get the idea that Florian is, much like Verdance, the other Earth hero, a ramping hero. So you use your Decompose effects to banish Earth cards and try and get your hero ability online. Once your hero ability is online, that gives you a lot of value. So the gameplay pattern here is very much like block with 2 cards, play a red attack with the blue that has decompose the 2 cards you just blocked with, and then just keep going until you've hit your hero ability, and then start to use your hero ability to get efficiency, to get resources, right? And to get sort of advantage turn to turn, because you'll make these auras. Okay, so that's kind of the play pattern. It's just this ramping play style where you're not actually online at the start of the game, but you get online quickly by playing these decompose effects, and there are defense reactions that decompose and that kind of thing that give you the ability to even decompose on your opponent's turn as well. His specialization then really just focuses on that creation of auras. Now, we'll get into the rune chant and the embodiment of Earth auras in a second, but this ability basically demonstrates what Florian is good for. I'm spending resources this turn to get auras and tokens next that are going to help me next turn. So in this case, for example, I'm spending X and X. So say if I name 2, I get 1 use of this ability. If I name 2, I have to pay 4. If I name 4, I get 2 of this ability because I name X, and then I have to pay X twice. So if I name 1, I have to spend 2, but I get 1 use of the ability. If I name 2, I have to spend 4, etc., etc. It's multiplicative. So I can do that reasonably. I mean, if you saved up, you could do that maybe 5 times maximum, maybe 4 or 5 times if you saved up enough. Spending 8 resources with 3 blues and still having a bit left over. And then think about how that interacts with Florian's ability, because each of these is an individual creation of an aura. If you did this 4 times with his ability online, you would actually make 4 and then gain 5 life. So you can see how it's powerful in the early game because it gives you a little bit of rune chance, a little bit of embodiment of Earth. But late game, it becomes doubly as powerful. And the art's great as well. I mean, you're already getting the vibe with Florian of serious, like, autumnal vibes. And if that is what you're looking for, then he could kind of just be the hero for you. Let's then break down 3 key things. So firstly, we've got 2 token auras that he can create. He can make an embodiment of Earth, and he can make a rune chant. Now, embodiment of Earth is a very good card. Earth heroes can make it. It just says non-attack actions you control get +1 while defending. At the beginning of your action phase, you destroy it. So you make it on your turn or your opponent's turn. It gets destroyed at the start of your turn, but for the duration, all of your cards that are non-attack actions are blocking 1. Now, Runeblades tend to play non-attack actions. So they're a mixed class who are playing non-attack actions to get value, and then playing attack actions to deal damage to their opponent, with a little bit of arcane damage mixed in. Now, their primary way of mixing in arcane damage is through these rune chants. So you can see the rune chant here is also an aura token, which means that if his ability is turned on, if you make 1 rune chant, you will make 2. And it just says whenever you play an attack action card or activate a weapon attack, destroy this, deal 1 arcane damage to a target opposing hero. Arcane damage, remember, is just direct damage, but there are effects that will prevent arcane damage, like arcane barrier, etc. So you can't block it like you would block physical damage, but there are ways to prevent it that you can look up and put in your deck if you're expecting to fight against a Runeblade like Florian. Then, of course, you've got Meld. Now, Meld is a new ability in Rosetta where Florian released, and basically it's 2 cards in 1, and you can play either side or both of them. The cost of the card of each card is the top right corner, and if you see there in the middle where it says Meld, it says you may play 1 or both halves. Each costs 0. If it cost 1, each side would cost 1, so you'd end up paying 2. Because it's 0, you don't have to pay anything extra. The left-hand side is an action, so it has to be played on your turn when you have an action point. The right-hand side is an instant, so you can play it whenever you like. To play both of these cards together, it has to be on your turn when you have an action point, because you have to be able to play the left side. You can't just tack it onto the instant and play it at instant speed. Once you play either side, the card is gone. It doesn't hang around for you to play the other effect another turn or anything like that. It is as simple as it looks. When you play the card, you resolve the right side first because it's an instant, and then you resolve the left side. And importantly for Florian, so it says create a rune chant token, full stop, create a rune chant token. That is deliberately done because remember, every time he creates a token, he makes a second one. Every time he creates an aura, he makes a second one. So if it was just create 2 rune chant tokens, he would only create 3. Because it's create a rune chant token, full stop, create a rune chant token, he'll create 4 when he creates those rune chant tokens. So you start to see how turning on his ability gives you a lot of value. So how accessible is Florian to a new player mechanically? I've given him 5 stars, so let's talk about why. Firstly, I think Decompose is a fairly straightforward mechanic. You're going to be running a lot of Earth cards in your deck. Because of that, whenever you block or attack with them, they're going to go to your graveyard. All you need to do to decompose them is just pick up 3 of them and chuck them in. And there is a small bit of nuance, which is you have to pick 2 Earth cards first, and then you can pick an action card. But you could also pick 3 Earth cards if you pick an action card. So there are Earth Instants and Earth D-React, so those need to be 2 Earth cards, so you could pick those. But after that, you could also pick Germinate or Felling of the Crown for your 3rd card, meaning that you only really have to play 3 Decompose cards minimum to get your ability switched online. I think it's fairly easy to understand. I don't think it's overly complicated. I think new players will get it very easily. He does lose a bit of points for the hybrid style. I think how to build a deck, which is like non-attack actions and attacks, is a bit confusing. But I feel like once you start playing it and you realize that his play pattern is just one non-attack action for value, or maybe to get go again, maybe to make an aura, play a big attack, and then maybe I can swing the weapon if I have resources, maybe I don't have resources. Once you realize that his playstyle is just non-attack action, attack, attack, there is a little bit of interesting bits that they can do, but that's basically his core is, go again, weapon swing, that kind of thing. It's actually fairly straightforward. And also I feel like he's very good for new players because he is both strong on offense and can also be strong on defense, which means that you are playing to both sides of the game and you have a little arcane damage in as well. He has this very flexible play style, which means I think mechanically very accessible for new players, and I think he's going to give you an option to learn a lot about the game on both sides of a table and all the cards the game plays. Accessibility, I'm giving him 4 stars. I feel like one of the things about Florian that's going to make or break him is ratios. So how many decomposed cards do I need? How many earth cards do I need? How many non-attack actions can I get away with? And how many attacks do I need? But I feel like those 4 things are very, very easy to explain and learn from other people. So I feel like someone could just be like, look, minimum is 12 decomposed cards. Never go below 12 or you won't turn on your ability. And if someone says that to you and it works and all the top players are doing it, then you just copy it and it's fine. If someone's like 12 decomposed cards, you need 25 earth cards, you can easily copy these ratios and play with them yourself until you find somewhere you're comfortable with. And I think his gameplay loop is fairly straightforward. As I've kind of said already, a lot of time with Runeblades, especially like him, you're either going to be doing one big attack or you're going to be playing a non-attack action for some value, doing a big attack and then swinging your weapon. Those kind of play patterns are fairly easy. Get go again, do an attack, swing your weapon. That's kind of what Runeblades have been doing for years. And I think he's going to be easy to pick up. I'll just put that out there. However, of course, if he's super mechanically accessible and he's super accessible in general, the depth is probably not going to be the same as he would with other people. I feel like most of the time he is always going to be looking for the same play pattern. He's going to be looking just, here you go, here's an attack, block a bit, attack again, block a bit, attack again, little bit of disruption. I don't think it's ever going to get that complicated, though there are some options and some interesting cards in his arsenal for building like one-turn kill combos where you build up a ton of rune chants and then you attack. Whether those decks are viable is entirely a meta decision, but most of the time you're just going to be looking for that value play pattern. Because he's a Runeblade, he does play non-attack actions, and that does expose him to a bit of draw and variance dependency. Sometimes you will draw a hand that is all non-attack action. Sometimes you will draw a hand that's all attacks and you can't get go again. There's all these things that cause problems. And then also, like we saw with the other Earth hero, it's just a prediction that ramp will get quite repetitive. Most of your early game with Florian is going to be the same every time. You're looking to decompose, you're looking to fill up your graveyard, you're looking to get switched online. And okay, every hero has the same game plan, but it's not always the same game plan across cards, whereas Decompose is kind of similar the whole way through. So, I do think the ramp side of these heroes might get repetitive, which will reduce the depth, because there's not a lot of flexibility in, I need to banish these Earth cards. Okay? Overall, though, I think 4 stars out of 5. I think he's a really good hero for new players. I think he's accessible. I think deck building is going to be fine. I think his abilities make sense. I think he gives you a lot of knowledge about the game, about arcane damage and non-attack actions and good attacks. And I think he's going to be quite fun and manageable. So I really would recommend, out of all the heroes in Rosetta, I think Florian comes up in the top in terms of who I would recommend for new players. So if you're in Rosetta and you're thinking, what hero can I use to get into the game? I think Florian is probably a very good choice. What else is a very good choice is rating Steel First Speaks, giving me a like and a subscribe. I've been making content on my channel for 5 years, though I do ramp up and down just based on what other things are going on. But typically there is an episode out a week covering the latest news in Fab. I approach everything from the perspective of a player. So I want to understand whether or not the game is making good decisions. Have DQs recently at big events been fair? Is the price support that's being offered acceptable? Are they overpricing things? Are they underpricing things? Have they made a good design decision or art decision? Were the bans fair? I take things from the perspective of the player, and I'm not afraid to ask hard questions of the game designers and the company that makes the game if they need to be asked. I'm fair with my praise and my criticism, and the goal really is just to be presenting a fair view on what is happening in the world of Flesh and Blood from an advocate of consumer rights and from a perspective of supporting players to get the most out of their TCG experience, not just, give money to a company and have a bad time. So that's what I do. If that sounds like the sort of thing you'd like, do like and subscribe to the channel. I will be here to support you in your fab journey and make sure you understand what's going on in the world of Flesh and Blood.